I want to dig into because I think this is really, really common among entrepreneurs, especially those that bootstrap, right? The debt. So, how in what areas did you incur the debt, and why did you choose that route rather than potentially going for institutional capital?
At the time, back when I did my first one, I did $100,000 SBA loan in
Hmm.
probably 97.
Okay.
And it was a small local bank. I'd been basically fostering the relationship for a while.
Yeah,
My house was on the line with that loan.
I bet.
And it made me nervous. Just,
Hmm.
it was by far the most money I'd ever borrowed at that
Yeah.
time. And I ended up paying that loan back in just over a year because I didn't like having it hanging over me, and I didn't like the effort that it took to stay in reporting compliance.
Hmm.
And in retrospect, I should have kept it. It was a
Yeah.
3-year loan, and I should have held on to that money for another 2 years, and I probably could have grown faster. But
Right.
live and learn.
Well, right.
Um,
And I think that's the important lesson, right? A lot of people are like, oh, I don't want all that debt hanging over my head. But to have 3 years to pay something off, right? And
yep.
be able to reinvest that money back into the company rather than paying it off. I mean, as an entrepreneur and a business owner myself, I have those conversations, right? Well,
Right.
should I pay this off now or should I wait? And often, especially if you have money at really low rates, I don't know what your rates were back then, but money's been practically free lately.
Yeah. Back then it wasn't, but
Right.
it was still, I had a
Low.
phenomenal growth
Hmm.
period between
Hmm.
97 and 2000.
Hmm.
I used that capital to go hire another salesperson and to get more resources in,
Hmm.
and that paid off really well. We ended up picking up Storage Tech and Coors as customers because of that investment.
Storage tech, that's impressive. I mean, so not that Coors isn't, but to be able to pick up a tech firm like Storage Tech, right?
Yeah, we back then we were doing all their barcode labeling system for all their tape drives.
Yeah. Well, and of course, having them be a company here locally doesn't hurt either.
No, it
At
was
least at
great for
that time,
business.
right? When they were still
Well,
Storage Tech.
they moved manufacturing to Puerto Rico, and we ended up doing business with them down there too.
Interesting. Tell me about how you've grown. You said your first employee was working in the basement. Tell me about the growth from then to being in office space and up to 120 people, and where you found your biggest challenges in recruiting, retention, and what you've learned as a really first time owner.
My favorite part
Sorry
of
about
doing
that
this,
barking. I'm going to shut my door,
that's all
but
right.
go on.
Um,
Apologies.
yeah, so
Yeah,
no worries. It's been a challenge. People are always the best and the hardest part of it.
of course.
And like I said before, I've been very fortunate in being able to acquire and retain some just amazing people. My CFO started with me in 1999. He came to
Wow.
me from Robert Half Account Temps
Mhm.
as a temp hire,
Mhm.
and really grew into this role.
Mhm.
He actually caught his former boss stealing money from me, and that was how he got the promotion. Um, but for me, AccuCode and the core of the team that's here today,
Mhm.
they're family, and
Mhm.
many of them have been here for a long time, and some of them are related to each other. I employ brothers and
Mhm.
brother-in-laws, and I've as I say, if you're that good and that smart, I'm willing to try some more out of that gene pool. Um,
Yeah.
and and they know that I care about them as individuals and as
Mhm.
people. It's
Mhm.
not just about work,
Right.
and they feel the same way about me. And often, even years after they've worked here, we're still in touch and we're still friends. And I've helped more than one employee start their own business while they were working for me.
Awesome.
And, if that's who they are, part of the joy of getting to do this is helping people become the best version of themselves that they can be,
Mm-hmm.
and helping them see past
Mm-hmm.
the things that are scary and hard, mentoring them in, what it's going to take to go build your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's, to me, that's the best part of getting to do this. And the second best part is the difference that we make for our customers.
Mm-hmm.
We've got many very long standing customers where it's been decades that we have been an integral part of their operation, like Kroger,
Mm-hmm.
where I picked up one project in 1999 with Kroger. We built their first e-commerce home delivery system. It was called Home Shop. Went live in 2002,
Wow.
and we started our development effort on it in late 1999.
Mm-hmm.
And the lead software architect that built that system for me is still working here, and his younger brother has been my COO for the last 15 years. That was the first major project that we had done for Kroger, and at the time I won it, we were not qualified, and I had to go hire everybody to deliver that project. And
Yeah.
I I was lucky and good, and it paid off. And today, Kroger's been our largest customer since 1999.
Yeah.
And every year I think they can't possibly buy more stuff from us, and every
They
year they buy
do.
more stuff from us.
Yeah.
And they've become very dominant over that same time period in the U.S. as a grocery
Mm-hmm.
retailer.
Right.
And we take great pride in the fact that we are a daily part of their success.
That's really great, and I wanna look at your comment that I closed this huge deal and I realized, oh no, I don't have all the employees I need to fulfill that, right?
Oh, I knew when I closed it, I had none of the
Well, I
people
know,
necessary to go do it.
and I think that's but the point is that this is again very very common among growing companies, right? Well,
It
do we hire
is.
the people before we need them, or do we wait till we need them? For 30 years, I've looked at companies often hiring before they should, and then people end up getting laid off.
Yep.
The other side of that is, oh shit, what if I can't get the people, right? Waiting till you have the need, which
I actually had already started the project. I was running the functional requirements
yeah,
myself. And it was actually it was the project manager from a competitor that was being replaced that introduced me to the guy that became the lead architect.
that's awesome.
And he brought two other great engineers with him that all of them ended up staying here for 20 years plus. And we built multiple products together and did
Mm-hmm.
lots of things.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the trick. When that project was over, I could have laid all those people off, and I ultimately in the short term would have made more money that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I saw how talented they were, and I knew I could go apply them to some new markets and new applications. And I did. And we had that opportunity, and I was able to keep them. That motivated me to go find more of that kind of work.
Mm-hmm. What does your organization look like, Kevin, kind of structurally, right? So we've got, X percent in sales, X percent, that are, in, engineering type roles, et cetera.
We are very engineering oriented
Yeah,
organization.
that doesn't surprise me.
I'm a little embarrassed to say that we did that $100 million with basically two salespeople.
Wow.
I've had as many as 10 or 12 salespeople at a time. Early in COVID,
Mm-hmm.
we did some headcount reduction, and I got rid of everybody that was underperforming or not
Mm-hmm.
performing. And I just accepted that I wasn't going to try and replace them for now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's now, 2.5 years we've been running with basically two salespeople. And here in just the last 90 days, we promoted another person from our marketing team into basically a
Okay.
junior sales role.
Mm-hmm.
But sales, from an HR and a management standpoint, salespeople have been the bane of my existence since I started this. They're by far the hardest to find the good ones and to
Mm-hmm.
retain them,
Mm-hmm.
which is ironic considering my degree is in marketing and advertising, and I come from a
Yeah.
sales background myself.
But you weren't in sales that long. you know?
I wasn't, and I've always been a techie.
Right.
I had a Commodore 64 when I was 9 years old and taught myself BASIC. And, I've been studying electrical engineering and physics and chemistry since I was a little kid on my own.
Hmm.
And that's really, I see myself as an engineer and a scientist mostly.
Hmm.
And I apply that in the real world all the time.
Hmm.
And people pay me a lot of money for things I'm technically not qualified to do.
Yeah. You know what? It's better than a sharp stick in the eye.
Yeah.
So why do you feel that for you personally that sales has been both the hardest to recruit and retain? And I think that's
Um,
not uncommon among many technology companies, but
you know,
certainly I'm interested in your, personal experience with this.
the one when you're different in your marketplace,
Yeah.
it becomes a challenge.
Yeah.
You're always, you've got this conundrum of you're looking for people that add to you,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to salespeople. So you end up recruiting from what I call, the industry retread pool, where there are a bunch of guys who have all worked for a bunch of people in your industry.
Yeah.
They are very personable. They're very, charismatic,
Hmm.
but they're not necessarily the hardest working people. And in many cases, they may have worked for much larger organizations where they never really had to do any prospecting. All
Yeah.
they had to do was show up and
Hmm.
people bought stuff. And that's an order taker, not a salesperson.
Like IBM.
Right.
That's kind of how I look at IBM. Is it
And I
order
deal with a
taker?
lot of
Yeah.
big technology
Yeah.
manufacturing companies, and a lot of those salespeople come from that ecosystem,
Yeah. Right.
and they're just used to a different scale and a different area, scope of
Hmm.
responsibilities.
Hmm.
At AccuCode, the salesperson is playing a really broad role, and he really is managing the customer relationship, and he's got, in many cases, he's the prospector. He's the one that's got to go out and knock on the doors and find the new opportunities.
Hmm.
A lot of our new opportunities come from referrals,
Right.
from customers, and from trading partners.
Hmm.
And right now, one of two people gets each one of those, and they're both rock stars, obviously. With that kind of revenue,
Hmm.
uh, they're both
They
making.
must be. And
Yeah,
and
they are.
are you paying them commensurate with that?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay.
My top sales guy is a former. He came to us from Kroger. He actually took an early retirement package from
I'll
Kroger,
be
and
darned.
this is the only sales job he's ever had. And he does over 50% of the company's revenue
Hmm.
as a salesperson,
Yeah.
and it's just been phenomenal. And that's he's that kind of person. And it's about integrity. It's about
Hmm.
emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
Part of the hardest part of what we've done historically in our market is that we are really different.
Hmm.
If the customer will trust us and to to do it the way we say it ought to be done,
Hmm.
I'll guarantee the budget and the schedule. And if I miss my mark, I'll eat the difference.
Right.
And that's so. There's really nobody else in the IT industry that will do that. And most customers are jaded because they've been engaged with more than one IT vendor
You screw them
that
over.
made a lot of
Yeah.
promises
Yeah.
and took a
Yeah.
lot of money and never
Mhm.
delivered anything that worked.
Right.
And so when you show up and say, no, you really can't trust me, and I'm willing to put it in a contract and commit
Mhm.
to it. Um, when I won that first Kroger Home Shop project, uh, I committed. I basically told Kroger, I'll bet you your down payment on this $5 million project that I'll deliver more than the last guy did. I'll do it in 8 months to his year, and if I miss my mark, I'll give you your money back and apologize for wasting your time.
Mhm.
And it would have put me out of business at the time if I'd
Mhm.
have failed.
Mhm.
But it was a worth, because I knew I wasn't qualified on paper. It took the risk out of it for the customer,
That's right.
and it was a worthwhile risk, and it
Mhm.
turned out great,
Yeah.
but still scary.
Well, right. And I've done the same thing over the years, right? Listen, I'll make it so that this is, you can't lose here.
Right.
Mr.
If I don't,
Prospect.
if yeah, you're either going to get your problem solved, or I'm,
That's right.
or it's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah, that's right.
And, and it,
Mm-hmm.
but that also creates a challenge in that a lot of customers just don't believe that. They're not going to listen to you. They're not going to do it the way you tell them that ought to be done. They already have a plan for how they think it ought to be done. And, we say all the time, part of our job is protecting our customers from doing stupid things that hurt themselves. And, often they mistake buying things with solving problems.
Right.
And buying a bunch of hardware doesn't ever solve the problem.
Right. Well,
you can spend millions of dollars on that hardware, but if it doesn't get deployed and integrated and applied properly,
that's right,
then you're not going to really get the outcome you're looking for.
Yeah.
And that's where the challenge comes in. And that's core to what we do is, as I say, we are the thoughtful organizer who has a plan for how you're going to acquire, deploy, service, support, and keep that working every day so that it actually solves the problem.
This is also not uncommon. Your point that, this is not they think they have a vision of how they think it should be, and they're wrong.
Right.
Right.
Well, if they were qualified to do it themselves, they wouldn't need to hire somebody else.
Right. I, said that in my business, when we talk about,
it's like going to the doctor and saying, I know exactly what's wrong with me. Here's what I want you to do.
Right.
Well, yeah. Don't you think you might want to let the doctor look at it first?
Well, that's exactly right. And, I've always said, listen, I'm the doctor. You're the patient. I know my business. Stop trying to do my business that I've been doing for 30 years. You don't know it.
Well, and you always got the IT department on the customer side. That's the other side of the equation. And, often there are egos that get in the way because, hey, this is my plan, my idea. Mm-hmm. And we want to accommodate as much as we can, but at the point where we recognize, hey, this isn't going to work, we have to, it's a question of integrity. Am I going to sit there and let you fail and just take your money anyway?
Right.
Or am I going to say, hey, hang on.
Yep.
I don't want to do it this way.
Right. Right. I've done the same thing and walked away from business because of it. It's just, if I take your money, I'm going to fail. Because you're not in the right place for this. Carol Schultz here. Thanks for watching this excerpt from Authentically Successful. The conversation doesn't end there. So if you want to hear this episode in full and all my conversations with many other successful founders and CEOs, please visit verticalelevation.com/podcast.